Welcome to Halftime, a show dedicated to equipping and inspiring people to accomplish what God has prepared them for. I'm Doug Piper, and I'm a Halftime alumni, and these webinars are part of my halftime journey. Thank you, everyone, for joining us tonight. Now, Halftime is focused on helping you create more meaning, joy, and impact in your life. So if you're feeling a bit that way, or maybe you know someone that's in that season, you can find out more by going to halftime.org. That is halftime.org. And I'll also include all that information again at the end of our program. Now, I want to thank everybody who's here tonight. And I want you to please continue the conversation by asking questions in the Ask a Question link that's right down there at the bottom center of the screen. Because in the second half of our program, you can pop in your questions and these guys will answer them. Please respond to our poll. We actually use the poll to guide our discussion today. So it's really important to add your content there. And we also love to hear where you're from, your kind of things you're working on there in the chat on the right. But don't really put questions there. To really ask a question feels the best place for those. Now, today we're discussing finding leverage through partnership. We're going to bring everybody up on screen. It takes a moment, so give me a little bit of patience here. And one more here. And that, okay. I think we are rolling here. Great. Welcome, everybody. I'm so glad to have everybody. Today we have Lloyd Reeb and Halftime alumni, Pat Hamill and Dave Keil. Dave is the president of Franworth, which has 450 combined years of building experience in partnering with emerging franchise brands. Prior to Franworth, Keil led 4 franchise companies as CEO, the Lash Lounge, Pure Bear, Honey Baked Hams, and Haagen-Dazs shops. Dave started his career as a Fortune 500 leader in Frito-Lay's, General Mills, and Ecolab. Now, Dave's mission is honoring God by loving his family well, sharing life lessons via lessonsonpurpose.com, and scaling companies for good via his nonprofit company, Franchise for Good, which is at franchiseforgood.org. Now, Pat's mission is and purpose is to joyfully bless those souls less fortunate in the areas of education, affordable housing, and job creation. And in 1997, Pat founded the Build Strong Foundation that serves as his philanthropic enterprise for doing good. Pat launched Oakwood Homes in 1990, and Oakwood Homes truly represents Pat's spirit of a company dedicated to the public good. In July of 2017, Pat sold Oakwood Homes to Berkshire Hathaway. We also have Lloyd Reeb, a successful real estate developer, author of 3 books, and the founding partner of Halftime Institute. And welcome, everybody. I hope everyone is well. Now, Lloyd, on this topic, now, honestly, I have a few personal perspectives here. When I hear leverage, that has a negative connotation to me, maybe like a business that's pretty heavily in debt. And also, not everybody wants to grow something that's huge and growing fast. So do you mind clarifying what exactly is meant by leveraging through partnering?
Yeah, those are common feelings, Doug. And first of all, thanks for your friendship and your partnership in this work together. Love doing these with you. When you think about your second half, if you really want your second half to make an impact, you're probably looking for a way to accomplish more without running around 60 hours a week like you might have done growing your business or pursuing your career. Not everybody is drawn to big things or big impact. But honestly, when you stop and think about it, there's nothing particularly spiritual or nothing particularly compassionate about touching the lives of fewer people. If you could do it, if you could help more people with the same amount of effort. And that's what leverage is all about in this context. Thousands of years ago, if you wanted to move a big rock, you needed a long stick and a leverage point in order to move more with less effort than you could do all by yourself without the stick. And so if you want your next season to maximize your impact, then you're probably going to be looking for leverage. And leverage in this context is a multiplier of your time and effort. And partnering is just one important way to do that. You can gain leverage through platforms, through processes, through people. In this case, it's partnering. And that's what we want to try to unpack together today with Pat and Dave. You know, Jesus talked about our lives could potentially be the soil that produced 30, 60, or 100-fold. In other words, that he was challenging us to choose to be a life that produced multiples of the effort that we put out and of what God planted in us. So people with a heart for what you're doing. When I think about partnering, I look for people who have a heart for what you're working on, that have complementary skills that would be accretive to the efforts that you're bringing, that have expertise and resources that are helpful. I think in terms of a sequence from character, competency, and chemistry. Does this person have character? You don't want to necessarily partner with somebody that's got great skills that are complementary to yours, but not good character. And then, are they competent in the areas that I need? And then lastly, does it bring more joy? Is there good chemistry with us? So, Pat, you've led a world-class building organization, and you've used it as a platform. I love the way you use your business, Pat, as a platform for good. And and Dave, you have built this layers of expertise in franchise. And you're using that at Franchise for Good, but also Franworth, the for-profit piece of what you do. I had the privilege of being on this journey with both of you. And so as I looked over your shoulder, I could see, gosh, if these two guys got together, it'd be like 1 + 1 = 25, right? Pat, I want you to start with where you are, and take a minute, if you would, and share with us a little bit about your background, your company, which we're all intrigued by, your mission statement. Give us a little color commentary on that. And then the opportunity that you've seen to create living wage jobs for people that maybe wouldn't benefit from a 4-year college degree.
Well, thank you, Lloyd, and thanks everyone that's on board here with this call. This has been obviously a real joy for me. And, we founded Oakwood. We're actually going into our 30th year, and really founded on a proposition of customer proposition of, best value and treating our customers to an enjoyable experience, and communities that created a sense of place. And just over time, we built it up ultimately to the point where it took a lot of leverage to run the business. We control somewhere around 26,000 home sites. And at some point I knew I was going to have to sell, and we were fortunate that I ultimately got a cold call, and one thing led to another, and sold it to a great company that's going to allow something that we founded to be multi-generational. Today I was mentoring a young man, and we were talking about what we were going to do for our 30th anniversary or theme for the year. And I said, man, I just can't wait to the 60th year now. And that probably will be a reality. But anyway, Oakwood, we operate mainly, we build large master plan communities in the Front Range of Colorado as well as Utah. And then we build homes. We manufacture. We have 2 operating plants, and we're vertically integrated with somewhere around 7 different companies, and our revenues will be right around $700 million. When we went into COVID this year, I thought, oh my gosh, this will be 2008 all over again. We were we were investment grade rated, and I almost went bankrupt. I had everything for sale, including my dog Turner, to survive through the financial crisis, and we've been really blessed through this last crisis with unprecedented unemployment. We have sold and are having one of our best years in the history of the company. And who would have thought it? 4 years ago, but shifting gears, this isn't about Oakwood, but it's really about kind of not only our industry, but also somewhat about the social unjust that's going through our country today. It's about this theme that's run through our country, that everybody needed to have a college degree to be somebody. And then the one thing that, even though we talk about full employment that we've had, let's say pre-COVID, I will tell you that we have extreme underemployed people throughout our country. And so it was approximately 4 or 5 years ago, we started a home building academy. And it occupies about 35,000 square feet. And we have 14 or 15 full-time people that run the academy. We do it through our foundation. And we take people that are underemployed in fast food, and literally in 8 weeks, we can move them from a $12 an hour job to a $20 an hour job. There's lots of things that go into it, but it's, you never forget a face when someone gets a job. We did a boot camp today, and I heard where we had lots of trade contractors and people there seeing our students in action, a little pop-up out on one of the job sites in Denver, and we placed 4 people just today. And so kind of as part of my halftime journey, really trying to find significance and mission in my life, which had definitely stalled. This academy is one of the things that we were doing, and I was getting a certain amount of joy of it. And I was actually perfectly content to make it the best thing ever, but not expand it. In fact, if anybody wanted to copy it, we were glad to share, which we've done many times over. We through some of my peers said, Pat, this is a big idea. And then, one thing led to another, and some of Lloyd's prodding, we've now created a goal is how do we create 1 million jobs over the next few years. And next week we launch the Build Strong Academy nationwide. And we've got interest from a bunch of cities, but we're going to go through a process over the next 10 years is really to figure out how we can not only provide jobs in our industry, in the housing construction industry, but really take people and, young people have a choice in life. And it's not just people coming out of high school, but do you want to go to college and end up with a debt of, $100,000, or could we teach you to be a plumber? And if you mind your P's and Q's, you could end up with $100,000 and really do something quite significant. We're even starting a program in 2021 where we're going to teach not only our alumni, but other people working in the industry to how do they start their own business and get more leverage from that. So the leverage concept is really great. What we're really trying to do now is find 500 Pat Hamills out there. And if anybody that's on this call is interested, we would love to chat with you and figure out how you could do something like this in your market. It takes local sponsorship, and that's how we're leveraging it. We're leveraging it not only with local partners and associations and national associations like the Home Builders Institute that provides our curriculum, but David and I, who's going to talk in a second as soon as I shut up, he knows how to scale businesses, and how do you take something that's a good concept or a concept and make it great and figure out how we can make it easy to expand, both either on a large scale or a small scale, basis. So that's kind of our mission, which is, how do we create 1 million jobs and really benefit joyfully young people. But we're hitting, we do not discriminate. We've had homeless people come through our academy, former felons. We work in public schools. But the real joy is taking somebody that's underemployed and moving them, to where they can literally get a higher paying job. They have to have the aptitude and some skill sets, but literally in 8 weeks, we can get them one of our boot camp programs, get them a higher paying job. And by the way, the need is unbelievable. There's probably 1 million. We probably have the opportunity to, obviously we can't do it by ourselves, but there's 1 million job openings in the housing industry a year. And our industry's just done a poor job of marketing really great careers that you can have. So,
and Pat, it was very moving for me just to spend an afternoon moseying around the academy. I mean, there were veterans in there getting redeployed. And what I love about your heart, Pat, is while you're thinking about big numbers, you're really drawn to the person, the individual person. I remember you telling me about picking up a young man on the side of the highway who was taking trains and hitchhiking and finding his way to the academy. He had the Build Strong T-shirt on, and so you pulled over, picked him off, he'd crossed a highway, gotten across like a median, and so you asked him, what are you doing? Where are you going? He didn't know who you were, and he told you that he had to spend 45 minutes getting to the academy, but he really wants it. And I know that you've been working on finding a better location that's close to transit to meet his needs. It's the same kind of attention to detail that I see you doing when it comes to understanding the customers for the homes that you sell. So, Dave, now you've spent a whole career figuring out how to take good ideas, make them replicable, and then just spread them around the world. And when you came to the Halftime Institute, I don't know if you had in mind this kind of fun that you could have teaming up with guys like Pat and bring everything you've got. And when I went to see your office, I love that it's filled with young, smart people. They're smarter than you and me.
No doubt.
They just need mentoring, loving, encouraging, and they love this stuff, right?
They do. Yeah. And back to my mission. I mean, Halftime was instrumental in me figuring out what I wanted to do. I mean, the way we went through it, was very much going and looking at our core. What are we good at? And then creating some time, to actually think about it, and then visioning. And, for me, the mission, as Doug read, for me, it's honoring God by loving my family well. So I've been married 32 years, have 3 great kids. Life lessons, my kids tease me all the time because I'm always using opportunities for teaching life lessons. And now I've, with your help and Halftime's help, I've turned that into something. And then the most exciting one is I took a career that, first half was in Fortune 500 world. And I always found myself looking for the most entrepreneurial thing in a business. I'd find the business that most interested me. A big company like Ecolab, I went and found the healthcare division that looked like it would be the most fun. So I always had this entrepreneurial spirit, and then got a chance to go do it. I stepped out and got to go lead some companies as CEO of franchise companies. So really got equipped by leading 4 of those through, difficult periods, places like Honey Baked Ham, or, which was really going through a major transition, or Pure Barre, which had a couple of years of negative sales and we turned it around. So, I really got equipped and learning how to scale. I'm an industrial engineer by training, and, learned some of those tools, but we're able to then apply those in the franchise setting. So yeah, I found my people in Ann Arbor. I had left Pure Barre and was looking for my next thing, and used that time I found my people here right in Ann Arbor, Michigan. I found my franchise people, and you're right, they're way smarter than me and eager and love this stuff. And then the Halftime journey really helped me go put these things together to say, how am I wired? What am I good at? And really a lot about leverage. How can I go leverage this thing? So I thought maybe it was going to be leading a nonprofit. Maybe that was in store for me. But really in the end, what I figured out by going through the whole halftime process was really what I was good at, what I could potentially leverage. And then this idea of franchise for good came to me. I knew enough about franchising. It always worked on the for-profit side. So it's a cool model. I mean, if you think about some of the most famous businesses that McDonald's, Marriott, I mean, these are businesses that are franchise models. And why? Because they understand how to scale. They know how to replicate. There's a process for everything. There's a playbook and a toolkit. It's supported by a team that are of experts. And so, the thought was, hey, if we can go use that toolkit to go really apply that to the nonprofit realm, why not? Some people had tried it. Ben and Jerry's tried it with partner shops, and I was involved with it back when I was running the Haagen-Dazs business and saw it, but it really didn't have much leverage. It was cool, individually putting someone in an underprivileged area into a Ben and Jerry's shop at the time. That was cool. But to be honest, it had never really been done well in franchising. So as I kicked it around with the team here at Franworth, who are all these franchising experts, we started to figure out, hey, why don't we do this and apply this to the nonprofit space? So that's where the idea for Franchise for Good came. How do you go take this toolkit, go apply it to a wonderful idea like Pat's? I mean, I love what he built in Colorado. So now we've partnered up, and we'll talk more about how that happened.
Yeah. So, when you think about that, how do you, decide where to look for partners? And, this can be just organic, like we just bump into somebody, or it can be more intentional, more strategic, asking, okay, if my halftime peer group are encouraging me to think about 20 of these and 1 million jobs, how can I do that without running myself ragged and pushing my team at the Build Strong Foundation to the edge of their capacity? And for you, Dave, look, I think I brought 4 or 5 ideas to you.
Yep.
I think I said to you, look, I spent every day talking to guys like Pat. I've got deal flow. Let me talk about like 6 deals, and you pick one, right? And you pick Pat just because he's good looking or something, and then you found out you like him after all. So here's the thing I'd like to spend a little time on. First, I want to go, Doug, take us to the poll, and let's see what part of this idea of looking for partners is most challenging for our other friends and colleagues around the world that are halftime alumni. And then I'd like to get Pat's advice around that. And Dave, I'd like to then turn to what you see as layers of leverage that are emerging from your work with Pat. So Doug, take us into the poll.
Okay. Our poll asked the question, when you think about accomplishing more through complementary partners, like Dave and Pat, for example, what is your greatest challenge? There are 4 questions, or 4 answers, Seeing where I have the potential for big leverage, getting clear on the kind of leader or organization that would best help me, finding someone like Pat or Dave to partner with, slowing down to really research how they could leverage my efforts. So looking at our poll, it's pretty much split. The heaviest is finding someone like Pat or Dave to partner with at 56%. And just short of that at 45% is seeing where I have the potential for big leverage.
All right. So Pat, what do you do? Like you've done this in business, obviously, and been successful. And now you've done it in the social sector. So finding someone like Pat and then seeing the potential for where you'd gain leverage. What's the mental process that you go through?
Well, I think the real opportunity is ultimately on essentialism, and you just got to be focused. And to do more, you have to do less, and really execute on what the mission is. And I think when I've not done well in the past, and I don't delineate much between, as my foundation director would tell you, I mean, nonprofit or profit, you still got to make money. You just get a little bit of a different tax treatment and how you classify your revenues, because it's the only way you can be sustainable in a nonprofit or a regular business is you got to make money. But I think for me, it's been focus. You know, how do you pick? We all have the opportunity or the disease of opportunity where everything's available. And, you know, one of the great things you've helped me with, Lloyd, is, you know, I say no 9 out of 10 times. And how do you pick one thing and execute well? You know, potential in a quarter doesn't buy you a cup of coffee today. It's all about performance. And how do you figure out what you can do? And sometimes it means you can't do it. And how do you be thoughtful and careful? And our philosophy, at least even in our expansion, is we're going to go slow and do it right so that we can really go fast.
That's good. That's good. And I know that you took time to really, you know, I vetted Dave's work and business. I went and saw his team to make sure it was the real deal before I made the introduction, right? But you still took time to say, okay, character, competency, chemistry, and really make sure that this was something that could work. Have you picked up some tips along the way about that, or is it intuitive for you?
Well, I think you know, when you figure about leverage, which one of the neat things that I love about the relationship, we have a company called Shazam, and no, it's not the Marvel Comics company. It's kind of a van-based service provider that we use to take care of our customers and do aftermarket or after closing services. And I'm not quite sure Dave can answer that, but how they got exposed to it. But you know, ultimately, they said, you know, this is too good of an idea on what you're doing just to keep it to yourself. We need to leverage this and take this national. And so at the same time, we've been doing, you know, the Home Building Academy, you know, on another side of our business with our capable team led by Nate. They're looking to launch Franchise for Good sometime either in 2021 or 2022, which we think will be a very profitable business, you know, operation. And not only has the leverage been, you know, exciting to figure out how to expand this, right, and create jobs, by the way, you know, on the for-profit side. And I'm going to count those to my million, because I just don't know how much time I have left on the earth, and I'm going to make that million. But it's leveraging on how well we're executing this company in our present environment, because they've made us better. I mean, our leader that heads this thing up, who's a pretty confident guy, and that's code for he does have his little share of ego, has told me on numerous occasions it's going to make us better. So that's a pretty neat. It's a neat deal.
Yeah. So that's looking, you know, across the spectrum and say, where could we benefit from someone else's expertise? Dave, before we move to the Q&A, what do you see in terms of this idea of partnering for leverage? How do you decide? How did you decide to do the Build Strong instead of the other ideas I floated across your pathway? Yeah. And what are the layers that you're seeing of benefit?
Yeah. You know, they're in halftime. Pat and I both were part of a fellow group. So I had another 12, you know, really successful men and women around me that pushed me. And so we were together for a better part of a year. And I think Pat described how his cohort was pushing him. Same thing with mine. These are amazing people who are all in the same boat, and we push one another. And so this idea got floated out, and they and you just helped me think bigger. You know, I was thinking about this. Well, I was going to go help an individual company that was, you know, relatively small to go grow. And I think through this process, I thought of two things. Why don't I go help a big nonprofit, successful one like the one Pat built in Colorado, and really go leverage it. So strength on strength. And then the other idea would be just go after big other franchisors and help them grow. So, just getting stretched and thinking beyond what you normally would think was certainly something Halftime helped. And the funnest thing about this is what Pat was talking about. It's these layers of leverage. So I'm able to, now that we've been connected, I'm going to help Pat and his company go. We're going to get 1 million jobs, Pat. I mean, there's no question in my mind that we're building the scale to go put these out. We've already got great demand that we're launching next week, as we said. So Bill Long is going to create and fix this real need person by person, but go create 1 million, train, underemployed second career folks into training. So that's cool. But Pat at the same time is helping me go bring my dream to life, a franchise for good. So without Pat, Franchise for Good wouldn't have a client. And so he's helping fuel that. And then in turn, we just talked about this idea. So along the way, we can't help ourselves. We see this cool division in Pat's company, this home building service. About half of the team of my team comes from a home building service business. And we're like, oh my gosh, if we could get our hands on that. Next thing you know, we're meeting Nate and now we're helping him scale. And we'll definitely launch this thing. We're actually, Pat, you probably don't know this, but we already placed an order for the new truck. So it's going, man. And we'll be franchising by next March.
I think we already have 30 trucks or something.
This is the new one. This is the new all outfit. But the other. And then, and then other people on Pat's team, we met. Pat is so gracious. He invited, me into his home, and I met his leadership team, and I hit it off with a number of folks who are all, helping us leverage. And then the other one that I love is Pat and I are thinking about the same thing. Franchising is all about putting people in business, wrapping a system around people to help them understand how to run their own business and achieve that dream. And so Pat mentioned this entrepreneur program. I know we'll pull that together. And that again is a whole nother layer of leverage. So not only are we going to be training people and getting them jobs through Build Strong Academy, but we're going to be training entrepreneurs to go open their own business, who in turn will be able to go hire more people. So think about those layers on Pat's business, on ours, on both of our for-profit sides of our business, and then all the individual impacts. It just the layers keep building.
So each of you that are listening to Pat and Dave's story, we want you to know that we want to help you make these kinds of connections, to build the kind of partnerships it takes to leverage your work. And Doug, as we wrap up this first part, if you wouldn't mind, I know you have three. You and I have worked on this a bit. You have 3 specific next steps you recommend for folks before we go to the Q&A. So share those and then lead us into some of the questions.
I certainly do. And for those that have only allowed 30 minutes, this will be recorded so you can catch the rest of it. But we hope everybody will stay and get your questions answered. So some of our specific suggestions that we have for Halftime alumni and those interested in becoming in the Halftime program is set aside some time to think about 2 or 3 kinds of leaders who could really expand your impact. Another one would be capture your vision on just one piece of paper. It doesn't have to be elaborate. Just capture your vision in one piece of paper. And then lastly, we would suggest begin to network among your contacts through a coach within the Halftime Global Network. And that's a great way to begin to kind of build your vision and move forward.
Yeah, and Doug, just to build off that, I spend time every single day making these kinds of connections, and we have coaches all over the world. And could be that, I have a wonderful guy I'm coaching right now who wants to build a world-class children's hospital in Africa. Well, we have people that have done amazing things in hospitals in Southeast Asia and other parts of the world that might have great best practices they can share with him. And so we're making the connections this week. So lean on the Halftime Network because that's what it's there for. So Doug, if we've got some questions, we can hang out a little bit more, but I know these guys have lots to do. So if there are a question or two, we can take a few more minutes and do those.
All right, and I would encourage, we got one question right now, and get yours in as we move through the rest of the program. The first question is, I think, directed to Pat. So, Pat, what's required physically to go through your builder training? Could a 110-pound young lady survive, and how long does it take to graduate?
Nice question. Dave, gosh, need to have Amy statistically, but we have a very large percentage of women that are actually in our academy. And I think the number's like 35%.
Yep.
And all shapes and sizes. And yes, I mean, there's so many different types of opportunities in the industry, all the way from, labor to administrative jobs in the industry. And we actually have women working on our factory floors. They're some of our best associates that we have, and they're some of the best teamwork people that we have. In fact, just today I was doing 9-box, just part of our associate review process on one of our factories, and I think almost half of the highlighted top performers were women.
Yeah, I would say don't select yourself out. I mean, we really are trying to make it available for everybody. And I think another layer of what Pat's created and we're helping scale is this will disproportionately impact women and people of color. I mean, so a lot of these jobs that are going to be created, these opportunities for upskilling, second careers, will really have a really cool social impact as well, not only getting a job. I mean, when you've got close to double-digit unemployment around this country, and Pat said it, almost 1 million, open building and trade jobs. We need everyone to come in and do that. So that's the idea, is to go plant these, around the country and to give more people opportunity, and also to be that consolidation point, because there's a lot of disparate activity happening. And that's one thing franchising can do and a clear vision can do, is really focus a lot of different resources in a market together. And as Pat said, leverage national partnerships, local home builders associations.
And what's the length of time that it takes to get through? I guess there are various levels, but
so one of our programs is a boot camp, and literally we run them during the day and evening because people will still be working. We can do 8 weeks, as kind of an overall introduction, and we play. Sometimes we don't even graduate. We're not about graduation rates. We're about job rates and performance, and we get people hired before even they've gone through the 8-week program. We're thrilled, right? Because the idea is, how can we better somebody's life and get them into an industry and be performing?
The other thing we do is offer, one of our partnerships, home building.
We're not stuck to some type of apprenticeship program that's 3 years. I mean, somebody that's really working hand to mouth. There's a statistic today that a huge percentage of some of our working poor do not have $200 to fall back on if they were to lose their job, and that affects hunger, poverty, kids, and everything else. And so our goal is really living wages, and how do we get them working and contributing, and then be able to have them come back and take more classes, as we go. And it's really providing a conduit, and the needs there, and we have awesome curriculum, by the way, just awesome. And that's and it's not right for everybody, but it's definitely right for a huge number of people.
So it's not about throwing an 80-pound sack of cement on your shoulder. It's more about the willingness, and in as little as 8 weeks in the evenings, you could move into some sort of a job opportunity.
Yeah. So we have women actually working on our framing, component wall tables. We prefabricate. We have a lot of women working in the finishing trades. They're eye for perfection is, it's just like, you know, uh, you know, I'm not a good dresser myself. I mean, a woman's touch can be really important in the home, be it on the quality of finishing. So I think there's all sorts of opportunities for women, and it's a big target in our organization, not only in our company, but for the academy.
I mean, another point of leverage even is we partnered with one of the founding partners of this is we looped in the Home Building Institute, who provides certification. So part of what people that come through, they'll get a Home Building Institute certification, in OSHA safety, and just as Pat said, kind of these general boot camps, or even carpentry, plumbing, electrical. So, again, one other layer of leverage there that they've come in, they also happen to bring, some great alliances with people like the Home Depot Foundation. So, this thing just continues to have layers. As we go roll this out, we'll have all that buttoned up.
So if you enjoyed building a habitat home, you might enjoy this school, is what I hear.
Yeah, absolutely. Coming to you soon, hopefully.
One thought that just goes through my mind is you guys are having so much fun, really compassionately serving people, and hopefully a million people. And Jesus gave us two directives: love your neighbors yourself, the great commandment, and the Great Commission: go into all the world and preach the gospel, make disciples, teaching people to follow him. And this might have some convergence there, but it's largely about loving your neighbors yourself, right? Doesn't mean it doesn't have the potential to really, like you said to Pat, bless the souls of people. So, I watch you walk through that place. And I stood beside you with a very talented lady that was running one of those computer-generated cutting machines that takes like bundles of wood and cuts it in, and she knows you care about her. Now, to me, that's how getting small, staying small, and getting big. You care about that one person because that's who you are, and that's who we each want to be. At the same time, we want to be able to do that for millions of people, right? Love your neighbor as yourself. There are neighbors right beside you, but then there's millions around the country. So, Doug, I think there's another question there.
There certainly is. This one comes from Jerry, and Jerry asks, what's the process to determine whether what you have is scalable?
Pat, what would you say?
I'm not answering that question. I'll let Dave do that.
We always give tough questions to the elder gentleman in the group.
I think you've got to think about setting that end goal. I think one of the things that Halftime teaches you are these life metrics, and I think that's one of the things for me that really helps stretch me about it's many of us have been successful in business, but how do you go stretch, and what could be, how might we, what could be. And asking yourself those more questions. I mean, Lloyd, you were coaching me on, 30-year metrics, not, 5-year or 10-year. What are lifetime metrics? And I think that's one way to go at it is, what can you do with that big of an impact? That's certainly one way to do that, to envision it. And I think this, what we just talked about, how do you go find areas of leverages? What can you be working on that also helps somebody else and begins to, add those layers that we talked about before?
Yeah. So for me, I have spent 24 years leveraging what Bob gave me to take the halftime movement around the world. And where I started was asking the question, is this a human need in other areas that I currently can't reach? And if so, what do I want to look back on 1,000 years from now? Do I want to look back and say, well, I did a little bit here in my town, by my lake, with my friends, and then until I was comfortable? Or will I wish, like anything, that I had put my ingenuity and my creativity and my entrepreneurial skills to think through whatever way I possibly could to take halftime to Africa and halftime to Singapore? Today there's someone on here from Singapore because it's 8:45 in the morning there. And there are 500 alumni in Singapore because we went over there and figured out how to take an idea, adapt, let leaders there adapted to that culture, and then be a wind at their back. Probably the most important thing Bob taught us about leverage through partnerships is he reminded us regularly that, remember, Lloyd, your fruit grows on other people's trees. If you have to own all the trees and take credit for all the fruit, you're going to just have a tiny little orchard in the corner of the world. But if you don't care who owns the fruit, like what I aspire to is waking up figuratively on any morning in the rest of my life and get my little rubber boots on, go work in God's orchard with my little pruning shears, and hope that the fruit grows on someone else's trees. And what Pat and Dave are going to do is there's going to be someone in Des Moines, Iowa that we don't know right yet that's just looking for a platform to touch thousands of people's lives with God's compassion in Des Moines, Iowa. And we're going to have exactly what they need. It will be add water and stir. And before long, there'll be thousands of people's lives touched. And then Pat and Dave won't own the results. They'll be back there cheering. And then 100 years from now, 1,000 years from now, we'll be sitting around on a great glass of Bordeaux talking about it and celebrating those stories. But if we got to own everything, it's not going to go very far. That dog, and like they say in the South here, that dog doesn't hunt.
If I could say one more thing too, it's, Pat and I both have for-profit things going on, and we're doing this as well and investing, for that fruit for others now. And so I think that's the other thing I'd tell you is just, think about it. I thought maybe I would have to stop what I'm doing day to day and Franworth and to start something else. And I think that's the other thing Halftime taught me is just, let's go now. There are opportunities now, and let's get after it now. When you have a little bit of, I've got a wonderful team that's certainly doing all the day-to-day work. And, you've got certain areas of leverage today and influence today that maybe if I'd left the workforce, I wouldn't have. So I think that's another one is just kind of get going now. You don't need to necessarily have, all the cars to clear before you get out of the driveway. You can just kind of get going.
I would probably just add too, I think you can test your idea that you think is scalable with others and just listen and see what you hear. And obviously we did a lot of that around the country, and we knew the need was there. I think our biggest challenge as we move forward is going to be finding people that understand and have a passion and want to do this from their heart. Because if they want to really, because obviously expansion and all this takes work, an effort, but if we can find those that really have their heart in the right spot, I think whatever the idea is, then they'll be one of the very most important things to success.
Well, that was our last question, gentlemen. So unless somebody wants to pop one in right quick, I think we're going to wrap things up actually a little bit early tonight.
Well, thank you, Pat and Dave, for what you're doing. The joy you're having together is contagious. I know you have great teams behind you. It's not just the two of you, and you haven't had a chance to really highlight those folks. But we're going to send everybody links to the Build Strong Foundation, the Academy, and also to the Franchise for Good. And if you want to reach out to those guys, both directly, we're going to give you contact info. If you need help getting connected, if you've got an idea you're working on that you think could be tested, could be vetted, could be chosen, could be franchised around the country or around your country, then reach out to us. If you're not clear on your purpose, then that's what the Halftime Institute's for, is to help you gain clarity. As we like to say, get clear, get free, and get going. So, Doug, thank you for your friendship, your partnership. I mean, you and I, this is what we do, right? We leverage each other's strengths and have way too much fun at the same time doing it.
It really is. And I want to remind everybody, if you want to get in touch with Halftime, again, the website It's halftime.org, or actually in the bottom center of the screen, there is a green button that says Contact Lloyd. And that's a way to get in direct contact with Lloyd and pursue the question a little bit further. So, again, we appreciate everybody's time. Dave and Pat and Lloyd, thank you so much for taking so much time with us and preparing such an informative program. Looking here in our chat, Aaron says it was a very informational presentation. Chris says thanks. Good challenge to think about. I like the way Chris puts that. And we've got folks from all over. So, and Jim Wu adds fantastic sharing. And Jim, I hope I didn't just destroy the way I pronounced your name. But again, we thank you for spending a few minutes with us tonight. We value your time. We thank you for doing that. The webinar is recorded, and a link will be sent to everybody that registered for the webinar, and you can still register even when the event is over, because we have more of these. We have at least about 1 or 2 per month, so we'll look forward to seeing you again. So with that, I think it's a good evening, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Cheers. Blessings.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.